Selecting windows today can be a really difficult and complex task. There's so many trade names out there and technologies to choose from, but what we're going to do is we're going to learn how to select the best window to give us the biggest bang for the buck to provide not only energy efficiency in our home, but also the comfort. When we look at a traditional double pane window, it's basically made up of three components. We have a frame, and that frame could be aluminum, it could be wood, it could be aluminum clad over wood, it could be a composite material like we see here, it could be a vinyl window, it could be fiberglass. Those are all things that we make the frame out of. We want to select a less conductive frame, such as a composite or a plastic type frame. It performs way better than aluminum. You don't have near as much condensation. The second part of the window is what we call the insulating glass unit, and that basically is the two panes of glass that's joined by a spacer. And the concept here is that the space in between the panes of glass is an insulating space, and we can even add things like argon gas, which is an inert gas that's less conductive than air, between the panes of glass to even increase the energy performance. The good news is that just going from the standard double pane window to the most energy efficient window in terms of the technologies like the low heat coatings, the argon gas and so forth, that only adds about $1 to $1.50 a square foot. So that means if I've got a 4-foot by 5-foot window, that only adds $20 to $30 to the cost of the window. Extremely cost effective and have a great return on your investment. So how do we know? How do we select the window? What are we looking for? Well, the easiest way is to look for the NFRC label. Now that stands for the National Fenestration Rating Council, and they're an organization that's a nonprofit organization that basically sets up the standards of how they rate the energy performance of windows. So we want to look for that label and that label only. The NFRC label has three important pieces of information on it. Number one is the U factor. That's primarily a number that we use to tell us how well that window is going to perform in the winter months. A lower number is better. The U factor is simply how conductive that window is to heat. Okay. The second thing we want to look for is the solar heat gain coefficient. Now that number is simply the percentage of heat from the sun that gets through the glass. So in the summer months, about 40% of our air conditioning load is due to solar gains through glass, so that if we can have a low solar heat gain coefficient, something 0.25 or less, that means it's going to reject 75% of that sun's radiant heat. So that's going to lower energy bills in the summer months as well. The third thing we want to look for is the visible light transmission, and that basically is how much light gets through the glass. A higher number is better there. So my recommendation for most climates is that you purchase a window that has a U factor of 0.25 or less and a solar heat gain coefficient of 0.25 or less. Another important component of a high-performance window is what we call warm edge technology, and that's basically where we have, like we see here, we have a spacer, and that spacer essentially has a little layer of thermal break or sealant between the metal spacer and the glass. That prevents that conduction through the glass to the metal spacer and back into the room. It also helps reduce the potential for condensation. So when people talk about warm edge technology, that's really what they're referring to. And it's a good idea to get it to reduce condensation and get a better performing window. So when selecting windows, it's really important to look for that NFRC label, and that'll make sure that you get a window that's going to give you the best energy performance and provide you with the greatest amount of comfort.